Let's take a look at just the SEC and the year that it was, man. Auburn, I think, is fascinating. Like, Auburn, you had the loss to New Mexico State, then you play Alabama down to the last play, and honestly play Georgia down to the last drive. What are your overall thoughts on where Hugh Freeze has that thing headed?
Well, and Ole Miss, too. I mean, it's been a really interesting year for Auburn. A lot of positives, a lot to build on. Obviously, the big black eye is the New Mexico State game. You know, and the last play versus Alabama. I mean, what could have been for the Auburn Tigers year one under Hugh Freeze, and you had an opportunity to cover a couple of their games. And kind of the big takeaway that I have, and I've talked to one of my colleagues, Cole Kubelik, about this a bunch, because obviously him being an Auburn guy himself, is everyone moving in the right direction. Today's game, there's a lot of pieces. There's the head coach piece, there's the player piece, the assistants piece. There is the athletic director, there's the boosters, the NIL piece, the collective piece. There's so many moving parts that everyone has to be going in the same direction. And if even parts moving, one wrong way or one misstep, the whole thing can kind of crumble. And talking with Cole about this, he's like, man, this is the first time in quite some time where I truly feel like every single part of the ship is working right, that everyone is kind of chugging and moving in that direction to getting better, to doing, kind of what Hugh Freeze needs to have success as the head football coach at Auburn. So listen, it's a place you can win. They've won a national championship in the past couple of decades. They've been to another national championship. They've produced Heisman Trophy winner and first round draft picks, all that. Like, you can win at Auburn, and you have the fan support at Auburn as well. I do believe they have the right guy to continue building in the right direction. They need to get a quarterback. I'm like, what are they waiting for? Like, go in there and not wait for the second go around to go get another guy to compete at that spot.
Because it feels like they're that close. Like, the guys they brought in through the portal, for the most part, like, were pretty solid acquisitions across the board. I know the Peyton Thorne situation didn't work out as well as you would have liked, but with putting it together with sticks and glue from the Brian Harsin era, from the last season and going into this season and making a bowl game, I think it was a really solid step in the right direction. Let's switch over to Florida here, Aaron. Is it that bad? Like, I think I'm probably more of like a glass half full kind of guy, and I'm usually the last one to get off the branch when you're talking about a coach and if he's the good fit. I'm still here sitting like, I don't know about Billy Napier, but where do you stand when it comes to everything going on in Gainesville?
See, I like Billy Napier. I like him a lot. Obviously there's some massive errors during the season that you can kind of point to the coaches of, like, it was more your fault than the players with some of the mistakes that were had. But you just feel for him, man, because this is a situation where you do have everything that you need to be successful. You have the money, you have the support. I mean, we will always remember the first picture of the players and the staff for Florida when there looks like there's a 1-to-1 ratio of coaches to players. Like, you have the support staff. You have the brand new facility. Florida just built their brand new facility. You're in the state of Florida. You got the recruits. Like, the problem is Florida State's had an incredible 13-0 season. Georgia Bulldogs, or 12-1, back-to-back, championship football team. They don't look like they're going anywhere. Miami's building in the right direction. So, like, if you don't keep pace with those teams, you're going to start to get more and more fans essentially frustrated with, why aren't we taking the same steps that Miami and Florida State is, and Georgia's building all that consistency. Like, we want that. It's all about comparing to your biggest rivals, and those are their biggest rivals, especially Florida State and obviously Georgia. So he's just in a really bad situation right now. And then you look at the schedule for next season. I know we've all seen it, but those last 5 games are just an absolute murderer's row. And I don't know what the magic number is for him to keep his job, but I look at that schedule next year, and I think like 6-6 at best, maybe 7-5. I think even 6-6 is kind of like hey, Deion, your son went to the NFL, baby. Come on over to Florida. Come on to Gainesville. We'll see what happens.
Could you imagine if Deion Sanders is up there doing the Gator chomp this time next year? We're like, oh my gosh.
How awesome would that be for college football, though, to have Deion in the SEC?
For the SEC, I mean, ESPN, if they could handpick one coach to drop into the conference, promise you would be Coach Prime. But yeah, I mean, I think you brought an interesting point up about Florida, like the schedule and just being in the SEC. Like, if we drop Florida into the Big Ten West this past season, like 8-win football team, 9-win football team, maybe, I mean, it's so interesting, like you said, comparing to rivals. Tennessee had this magical year the previous year. This year, no Hendon Hooker, no Jalen Hyatt, and stumbled maybe feels like the wrong word, but maybe stuttered a little bit to Tennessee. Where are you at with them? Because I'm like, you bring in Nico next year and the vibes are back high.
Well, I mean, this is Nico's opportunity now. I mean, this is the $8 million man. It's time to go make that paycheck. I think this is the really, he set the market. This is the first big experiment of paying a high school kid that amount of money and seeing if it's worth it. So, like, I think a lot of eyeballs, including myself, will be on Tennessee of, is it worth it to pay a high school kid or a kid coming out of high school that much money when he's never played in a college football game? So, like, this is a crazy experiment. I'm very fascinated to see if it works or not. Obviously looked good in the limited time that he did play this season as the backup quarterback there at Tennessee. But, the offense is going to be fine. They return a lot of key pieces at the offensive line. They did lose some guys on the defense side of the football. A couple guys actually to Ole Miss. But I like Heupel, man. I like what Heupel's doing. I like what they've done. I love the way in which that defense did progress from a year ago to what they were this year. Obviously very tenacious, can get after the quarterback. But this is all Nico. This is Nico's opportunity. I mean, he's highly talented quarterback. You're in a very quarterback-friendly offense. You've been in it for a year right now. You should know the checks. You should know it. You're going to get all the reps in spring. You're going to get all the reps in fall camp. You should be ready to go. It all hinges on him. Is he ready to take that next step, or is he ready to take his first step essentially to being an SEC quarterback? And if he is, I think they're good enough around him. I think Heupel's a good enough coach to continue progressing. Like, do I think Tennessee wins the SEC? No, but are they good enough to win 9-10 games and be possibly a playoff fringe team? Yeah, I think they're building in that direction.
Man, I think was just the best thing for Nico to be able to have 1 year to just sit, learn from a guy like Joe Milton, who's played a lot of college football, or at least been on a lot of college football teams throughout the course of his time in college, and just learn the system. Have Mackenzie Milton there with him. Like, I thought that was just the best case scenario. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.